Today, I've got something special planned. We have one of our good friends who's been on the channel before. You all know him really well, and he was kind enough to come back on and do a little holiday celebration with us. Talk about fusion. That's really his specialty. Some of you guys might know him. Some of you guys may not, though. I find it hard to believe that anybody doesn't know him. He's a guy who's been teaching DaVinci Resolve on YouTube longer than I have. And he does a great job at focusing on fusion. And you guys know how crazy the confusion page can be. But he really does a great job of sort of simplifying it and making it accessible. And I want you guys to welcome him to the channel. He's a man who really doesn't need an introduction because he's so famous. But then at the same time, he's a guy who's so famous that...
a kind introduction.
He's a man so famous they write music about him.
Of the fusion page.
Wow. That's fun.
Casey, thank you for being here today. It's always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Hey.
I'm really excited. I think people are excited. We're gonna have a good time today.
It's always so much fun to be here. I love being on your stream because you're just top-notch human being, man. And I
think everyone agrees. Ask Alex. So what I want to cover today, what we thought we would do is lean a little bit into fusion, because I got to tell you, when I'm working in Resolve, fusion for me is probably the most difficult page to sort of wrap my head around, and it's just because it really shifts gears. You know, when it comes to using digital audio workstations, Fairlight makes sense to me. When I use the cut page or the edit page, that makes sense. Media page, deliver, all of those. Even when I get into the color page, it really makes sense because everything feels like the kind of tools I've used all my life as a musician. But then we get over to the fusion page and I'm like, what on earth is happening here? And I think it's the kind of thing that I probably get more questions about than anything else is the functionality, just because it's node based and it's crazy and it's something that takes a while to get used to and to learn and sort of get that workflow ingrained in you. What was it that made you get so excited about the fusion page, Casey? Why did you gravitate towards it so much?
Okay, so one is it doesn't take too much digging to figure out that fusion is the most powerful page in Resolve. I mean, there is so much you can do in it. And really just the sky's the limit, because you're basically given a tool set that is extensible. And so when you're talking about nodes, I mean, you can connect nodes to other nodes and you can make your own like little machines kind of. And that to me is just really cool. Anything that's modular, I think is just the coolest thing ever, because you can make it your own thing. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's only effective or non-effective ways to do it for what you want to do. And so that's the big thing. And then the second thing is it just seems cool. Like I like doing things that feel cool. That's why I like color grading, is because like you're on a color surface and it's like you're on the spaceship, right? And the same kind of thing with nodes. It's like, I'm the master of this spaghetti and nobody knows how this works, but I do, you know, and it's just exciting. So
there is a certain sense of when it starts making sense to you, when you start understanding. It's like learning a language, and when you start like inherently understanding the language of fusion, there is, at least there was for me, this moment of like, aha, I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to feel the flow. I don't feel like I'm totally guessing everything I do. I'm starting to be like, my intuition of what to do next is actually more accurate than it was when I first started.
Yes. Oh, that's such an amazing time when it starts to click. I find there's these little moments that it goes from, I have no idea what the heck is even going on, to like, I figured out this one little part. And what's cool about that is it unlocks like 50 things. And then you just go to the next step, right? And I think what's hard is it can feel so intimidating when you're looking at like, all right, I'm going to learn 1 million things. But the truth is that you learn one little thing and then that unlocks 5 or 6 things. And then you learn another one of those things and it unlocks 10 more, you know, and so it kind of like spider webs out with your knowledge. And so it's not linear, which is interesting.
Well, to me, it's a lot like learning a musical instrument. Like it's if someone came up to me and said, "Hey, just teach me how to master the guitar," I'd be like,
real quick.
That is a loaded question because you know you can learn to play guitar halfway decent probably in a year or two and be pretty good. But it depends on like what do you want to do with it? Like, are you just going to go sit by the campfire and play songs with the family and friends? That's not as hard when you're learning some simple chords and you just want to get your strumming and your rhythm down.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go try to join a metal band and do like crazy lead solos and all that stuff, that's another tier, and it's still the same instrument. But
Yes.
it ends up being like the more you want to do with it, same with Fusion. What's your workflow? What are you trying to get out of it? And the more you're trying to get out of it, man, the more deep down the rabbit hole of Fusion that you can go.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting too is your history, like your context is really important, right? Because if you're coming, like I find, because you make the analogy of guitar pedals when it comes to the node flow, right? And so there is a mental model of some kind in your mind that you're like, oh, this is kind of like X, right? And so you can kind of draw some conclusions from that, right? And I find people who are from like a game development background can pick up nodes pretty easily. People who are into guitar effects and things like that, they can pick it up pretty easily, right? But somebody who hasn't used things where you can like modularly switch things out, that's a whole hill to jump over before you even start learning the interface. It's just a cool thing. And that's the thing that I think is so interesting is I watch tutorials on all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to learn all the time. And what happens is people will teach how to use a tool, but you won't really understand the underlying concept. And so it never comes, it never really connects. Right. And it's sometimes so obvious to that teacher what that concept is that they don't think to teach it. Right. And so like video editing, right. You have to understand things like, oh, well, there's a series of images and those are put together in time and that's synced to audio and audio works a certain way. And like, there's all these foundational things that if you don't understand, everything is way harder. And I think that's the hardest part of learning something, especially online when you're not working one-on-one with somebody, is what do I not know? Like, what do I not understand at the fundamental level here that just makes everything else easier? That's the thing is like, there are things with nodes that if you understand the fundamentals of a couple things, it makes it so much easier than remember this specific node and put this specifically here. And you need to remember to do that because there's reasons why you do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I get questions like that all the time. It's like, could you just make a video that goes through and explains every node in Fusion and when you would want to use it? And I'm like, yeah, if you want an 87-hour long video, and I'll only scratch the surface because it's like saying, can you explain what a hammer is? Well, a hammer is something that hits nails. Well, how do you use it?
Bonk it.
All right. Well, what are you building? Because now, we're going to go down a rabbit hole of tools and when to use certain tools for certain things. And that's really what Fusion comes down to, is just a whole bunch of tools. And because we're so used to, I think a lot of people come from different video editing software, CapCut, what have you, something they used before, Filmora. And it's very layer based where it's just like put a track in, you want something on top of that, put it on top of another track. And when you get to Fusion, it's like, where are the tracks?
There's no timeline. So it's very strange. Yeah.
Very clip based. Yeah. So do you think that, I feel like if you're really into Fusion, that the studio version really opens up a lot of opportunity. That I think the free version is great, but like the Fusion page, once you get into the studio version, that's one of the pages that really starts to blossom. Whereas if I was in the edit page, I don't know that the edit page doesn't jump in functionality when you get the studio version, but absolutely the Fusion page seems to. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, to a point. It depends on what you're doing, right? It's the same thing. It's are you playing guitar around the campfire, or are you trying to shred solos, right? You can still do, I mean, you do so much in Fusion in the free version. But when it comes to things like Magic Mask, I mean, that's essential for a lot of workflows nowadays. Noise reduction, that kind of thing is very, like a lot of the open effects and stuff that come with the studio version of Fusion. It's really, really helpful. You can obviously do it without it, but
it's
studio
harder.
version.
Anyone out there who's ever tried to like do some rotoscoping and then track that, making a mask and track it, it's so brutal. It's so brutal.
It's rough. Yeah. And sometimes you need to do it. That's the thing is like, I have courses on Fusion, and one of our more advanced courses is how to manually rotoscope things. And the very first question I get is why? Why do you have that? I mean, I have a whole, I mean, it's like 2 or 3 hours on rotoscoping and masking and that kind of thing. And it's like, well, we have Magic Mask. And it's like, yeah, but Magic Mask doesn't work for everything. And sometimes it isn't reliable. And sometimes it's a lot more trouble than just rotoing it yourself. 100%. And so having those skills is really important, even though a lot of it is sped up with AI stuff these days.
Yeah, just the other day I was doing a really simple tutorial of just getting text to spin or to rotate, like sort of in 3D around the planet Earth. And when it went around the back, I needed to mask that out. Now, Magic Mask doesn't do a great job of going like, hey, mask out the text, but only where it's going to go behind the planet, not in front, because it wants to start grabbing these elements, and it doesn't have all of that definition. You can do it, but it's, for me, it's like, I just want to get in there. I'm going to draw around the edge. There you go. Perfect. It's gone. And it gives you, there is a thing that like that no two workflows are the same. A lot of times people are saying to me, like, why do you do it that way when this way is faster? And I say, listen, I teach people how to use the tools in Resolve because faster is not always faster or efficient in the long run. One of the examples I give, like if you're on the edit page, like all of the audio and the video clips have these awesome little corner keys where if you want to fade in from black, you can pull the corner key in, or fade out to black. Same with the audio. If you want to start having it slowly turn down at the end, you just grab a corner key and pull it in.
Yeah.
But if you do that and you get it perfect on a clip and you want to copy and paste that into 40 other clips, those corner keyframes don't copy and paste over. If you do it with keyframing and go, I'm just going to keyframe that quick in and out, then you can copy and paste that into 40 other clips and have them all fade in, fade out exactly the same way. So it becomes a matter of which is faster. And it's like, well, faster depends on your workflow. And what do you plan on doing next? Because there's a reason that there's more than one way to do things in Resolve.
Yes. Yeah. And
let me ask the chat really quickly. You guys, sorry to interrupt you, Casey. How many of you guys are using the free version? Give me a yes, a thumbs up, or a no if you're using the studio. Listen, they're free studio. Tell me what you're using, the free version or the studio version. I like to get a feel for the chat in here.
Yeah.
So I interrupted you, Casey.
No, it's okay. I forgot what I was going to say, but
it was very important.
It was the key to life, but
to cracking Fusion.
Not that big a deal.
It's all right. Thanks for interrupting me.
You'll ruin it for everyone.
So yeah, like I'm starting to see already, we're going like, there are a lot of people who do use the free version because, you know, it's there, it's easy, free, but there are studio users. I'm seeing, you know, you get a lot of people in here who have made the investment to go, yeah, I want to get the studio version. I love the studio version. I used the free version for about a week just to see if this software was something that I would like, you know, that if it made sense. And the minute I went, oh, this is crazy cool, and I dove right in and bought a license. Let's do this. Let's start out strong here. Casey, can you see the chat? Do we have a chat option? Can you see it? Pick a name from the chat. Anyone who posted the word free, just pick a name out, and let's see if we can find them. And let's give them a studio license, courtesy of our good friends at Blackmagic Design.
Oh, baby. Okay, how about Sean Solo?
Sean's great name, Sean Solo. That's hand
like
sign.
Han Solo, but with
Sean Solo. All right, Megan, could you do me a favor and find Sean Solo? Sean, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you get in touch with Megan. She'll give you her email. She'll get in touch. She'll confirm that you are the owner of that channel, and we'll get you hooked up with a free license for the studio version, which is awesome. Depending on where you live, our neck of the woods, it's about $300 license. Some places, if you go overseas, it gets even more expensive, but it's well worth the investment. I think it's awesome, and we'll be giving away some more stuff while we're here. Yeah. So let's not mess around here, Casey. Let's talk about Fusion. Can you
show me your messing around, but
you know you're going to mess around. I know some stuff. There's going to be some shenanigans. Can you pop up your screen and let's open Fusion and let's take some questions from the chat and let's see what we can. They've got questions about Fusion. If you have questions about, there he is, Sean Solo, SHONSLOL. That's nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you guys. You're very welcome. And we got more stuff coming. You guys stay tuned. You got that, Megan?
I've got it.
Perfect. All right. So Casey, if you would be so kind as to share your screen, you guys, if you have questions about Fusion, do me a favor. Shout them out. One of the things that, and we're going to see if we can cover some of the Fusion questions from the chat. One of the things that I see all the time, probably the most common question that I get, Casey, is people will say to me, hey, I'm having trouble getting my tracking to work. Let me see if I can switch this angle. And it's one of those things that I think I don't want that. I want the opposite version. I think that it's one of those things that that people struggle with, because trying to track something and then get your tracking to follow and then get it to do the right thing. If you're trying to mask something or track something, a lot of times tracking goes crazy. If you're masking something and trying to track a mask, it's one of those things that gets very crazy very quickly. Could you give us some tips? I know you work in Fusion a lot. When you're thinking about trying to track footage, are there things that you should know about the footage? Is all footage created equal? Is tracking one of those things like, yeah, click here, do that, you'll be good to go? There are different type of trackers. I think people ask me all the time, like, am I supposed to use this tracker or that tracker? Can you give us some basic tips on what's going on with tracking inside of Fusion?
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to find a clip that's going to work really well for this, but I have a couple that'll probably work. Let's just go with this one. It's not the best, but we'll work on it. So when it comes to tracking, a lot of people overcomplicate this, basically. That's the big thing. There's a couple kinds of trackers. There's a point tracker, there's a planar tracker, there's a 3D tracker, and there's a surface tracker. I feel like a lot of tutorials jump into the 3D tracker because it's exciting. You almost never need to do a 3D track unless you're doing something pretty darn fancy, okay? So for this, I could easily see somebody saying, okay, well, we should do a 3D track on this. And it's just way overkill, all right? So for people who don't know, a 3D track is a way to kind of reverse engineer the properties and the movement of a camera in 3D space, rebuilding it in a 3D world digitally, and then matching that movement of the digital camera perfectly to the real camera. And if that sounds crazy, it's because it is. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. My screen is mirrored. Can we switch that off in the?
I've got you straight up. I've got you in the right way, this way.
Weird.
Your screen looks correct. Oh, you're right. It is mirrored. Hold on a second. Let me see where it is. Give me a second. You are mirrored. Let me see.
It looks mirrored to me, but maybe it's.
Yeah, I think that's how you're sharing now. Yeah, it is mirrored.
Oh, mirror camera. There we go. Why would it default to that? That's dumb.
Yeah, that's silly.
Okay.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be learning how to do Fusion backwards today.
Apparently. Okay. Why is my camera not working now? What the heck? That's not even like the same thing.
Do I have you?
Is it locked up or something?
I don't know. Maybe. Do you need to start again? I don't want to lose
you.
There
it is. Weird.
There's you.
Oh, my stream deck's jacked up. That's why. That's what's going on.
Do you need to restart?
Just a second.
All right. Well, while we're letting Casey restart and get things squared away, let's do this. I'm going to give away another license. You guys already screamed free a bunch of times. Megan, can you scroll back in the chat, pick anyone in there that said free, and let's find somebody to give another studio license to. I'd like to see if we can help people out and get some studio licenses in people's hands.
I'm going to go with Mr. J Scheme.
Mr. J Scheme. All right, pal, that's up for you. I'm going to have Megan, reach out to Megan. She's going to leave her email in the chat. It's very simple. It's Megan, MEGAN, at danielbatal.com. Reach out and she will get you, confirm that that's your channel, and we'll get you a studio license so you can start using the studio version instead of the free version. Get you moving in the right direction.
That's exciting.
I love it.
Yay.
All right, did we figure it out?
Yep, all good.
Okay.
Yeah, when I switched my camera, or when I switched the mirror, it switched the camera I was using also. I don't know. Anyways.
Welcome to Restream.
Technology. Thank you. Okay. So when it comes to tracking, yeah, like I said, a lot of people overcomplicate it, right? And really the key with tracking, and really with a lot of stuff in Resolve, I'll move my camera up, is keep it as simple as possible. Always keep it as simple as you can. All right. So for instance, if we wanted to put something on this background, like, I don't know, a word or something, we could track it 4 or 5 different ways. The best way is the one that's easiest, takes the less time, and works. Okay. So the very first thing I always try and do with a track is I try a planar tracker. All right. So a planar tracker is really great because you don't have to pick a specific part to track. All you have to do is kind of select an area and it will track it for you. All right. So I'm going to select this planar tracker and I'm just going to kind of draw a shape around this area. What this is going to do is it's going to add a whole bunch of little points here, and it's going to track a bunch of stuff. I don't have to pick it. It's going to track it itself. All I have to do is go up here to reference time and hit set. And so that's at 0. That sounds good. And then I'm just going to track this forward and see how it goes. Okay, so that did a pretty good job. And it's just grabbing that movement. What's cool about a planar tracker is once it's tracked, you can make what's called a planar transform, which is a transform node that has the movement keyframes on it. You don't have to connect it to the tracker. You don't have to do anything fancy, use expressions or anything like that. You just literally hit this create planar transform. That's going to make this transform node, and then you can get rid of the planar tracker if you want. This is a magic planar transform, and you can see right here, it has keyframes on it. And so anything that I run through this transform, like so, some text, put this through the planar transform, merge this over. Let's make sure we're actually looking at this. There we go. Put this text over here. If I play this back, that's going to keep that stuck to that cabinet. All right. So that's what I go to overall, like 9 times out of 10 is I try and do the planar tracker because the workflow is super easy. All right. Now, the reason you would use a different tracker ever is if the planar tracker doesn't work. Okay. This is the easiest one. If for some reason this wasn't tracking, it didn't hold on to it or something, then I would try the point tracker, because the point tracker is the next easiest thing to use. And that basically is let's just try it. So it's just called a tracker. And so if you have that selected, you're going to go up here and it's going to give you this little cross. You put this on something that's high contrast. So how about right there? Okay. Then you can track this back and forth. And most of the time it works. Yep. And so that looks like it worked fine. It grabbed onto that. And now this tracker kind of becomes a merge node. And so I can take this same text and I can put it into that foreground. If I grab this tracker, go up to operation, match move. Now that's going to do a similar thing. Now you'll notice that this kind of jumps around. Again, this is because this tracker is, it's harder to get right, which again, that's why it's my second choice, is because you have to kind of mess with it sometimes. But sometimes the planar tracker won't be able to grab a big enough area. And this point tracker, you can grab a couple points and it will work a little bit better. But you sometimes do have to tweak it, right? And so this tracker, it's kind of like jumping, and see, like right there, it's jumping. And so you can go in here and you can adjust it, which is cool, but you know, it's more work. So I'm going to take this and grab this and bring it back down like that. And you kind of have to go in and adjust it sometimes.
Right. All right. So now, hold on one second. So when you're doing that, Casey, you said you were adjusting the tracking. Can you take a second and just really explain what you mean? Like, how are you accessing that? How are you getting it to adjust? And how are you really getting that to tweak that? Those little lines showed up. I'm like, wait a minute, where'd that come from?
Sure. Yeah. So this tracker, when you select it, after you've tracked it, let me see if I can grab this gamma. Yeah. Drag this down so we can see it a little better. What it does is it makes a series of keyframes here on this line. So this is a motion path. It's just like if you were to keyframe something and move it every frame, it would give you a path kind of like this. And so a tracker is really just an automated way to make a motion path. Okay. So what this is this is just a keyframed little point right here. And it's just showing up at each of these points. And so I can go to a different, I can go to whatever whatever frame I want, and I can grab this point and move it around. So if I want to move it over here on that frame, see how it kind of just moves over. So, but the key here is, yeah, I guess you can move it like this. It's best to go to the actual frame and then move it like that. This process admittedly is kind of annoying and it's a little buggy sometimes. I would be the first to tell you I'm not super confident in like fixing tracking data and stuff, because it's really annoying, and there's, I think, still some concepts there that I don't totally understand. especially with the planar transform. Again, this is a really easy thing to do, but like this planar transform, when we're talking about, adjusting the tracking data, like there isn't data there to adjust. Like you might be able to do something, but it's much more kind of behind the scenes. And so, if it's something where I know it's going to be a track that's going to have a lot of trouble, I typically will jump to the tracker just because I know I can go in here and adjust it and do some manual movement of these little keyframes and stuff if I need to.
So that's one of the things that I deal with, Casey, is a lot of times I'll take some footage and it'll track really, really well. I'm like, oh, perfect. Like you had a piece, there was a little bit of motion, not a lot of camera action, very crisp. They were very identifiable pieces. I think that's one of the things we should talk about. Is like, how do you know where to track? Sometimes people go, I want to track that person's face, and they just sort of define the face. And sometimes regions of a piece of footage is not all footage is created equal. Not all footage is going to track well. Some will be great, some will be horrible. Where you define the region that you're tracking, how and even all the options you can put in there, like the perspective 3D and rotation, like how do you make decisions how to use, even with the planar tracker, which options you're going to leave on for the tracking process, and then which areas you're going to track? Do I go really close or do I do a wider area? How do you make those decisions?
Yeah. So, okay. So for something like this, you typically, so like with the planar tracker, you typically want to track the biggest area that you can that all has the same motion. Okay. So for instance, like I could maybe with the planar tracker, grab a little part like this and track it. And it might, it'll probably work. Yeah. But the reason that's working, and I'm not even totally confident about that. It's trying to grab a bunch of points within this area. Okay. So you want to give it as much data as you can. Okay. So if all of this is pretty much going to move the same, I would rather give it a bunch of data. So, I mean, like this kind of thing. So it can pick a tracker here and here and here and here and here, because what it's doing is it's grabbing tons of little trackers and it's kind of averaging out the motion, all right, the movement. And so the more data it has, the more accurate it is. Now, when it comes to, so that's the planar tracker. When it comes to a regular tracker, generally what you want is you want something that's easy for you to see, that is high contrast, because by default, this is looking for the difference in luminance, right? You can also, I believe you can switch it to look at different channels, but it basically just looks at the brightness of things. And so you don't want to track something like this to where there's not a lot of contrast there. You want to track something that's really like a higher contrast, like this edge right here. That would work pretty well because it has a lot of high contrast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think that's one of those things that we don't hear a lot. Like I get a lot of questions from people that are like, my tracking got halfway through and then it veered off, and how do I fix it? And I don't know what to do. I think it's because there are so many options in Resolve, and especially Fusion, that I don't know that it's always completely evident, like which tracker do I use? Why do I use that tracker? How do I use that tracker? Yeah. And what happens when all hell breaks loose and everything goes wrong? And like my tracking, especially when you're doing things like a mask, where you mask something or rotoscope it, and then you track it and you see your mask just get twisted all over the place. Like, holy good monkey. We do have a question, Casey. Let me pop this by you. We have a question. One of the channel members asked, hey, listen, with all this AI trend, how is DaVinci Resolve handling hardware requirements? Premiere Pro is getting so heavy that it's being hard for mid-spec Mac OS. This is, I think we felt it. I think we've seen in the more recent Resolve updates, they've sort of increased the requirements. Whenever anybody asks me about the kind of PC that they might want to build, if they're PC users, this was a Mac question. I always push them towards, you had a great video that you actually sat with guys who build PCs specifically for Resolve, and went through all the ideas of like, well, which part of Resolve are you using, and why would you, if you're leaning on Fusion heavier, then you're going to want to lean this way. And it's really interesting. What are your thoughts? Do you feel that the studio version, especially with, because there's a lot of these studio features are sort of AI driven, and we're seeing a lot of the, you know, the neural network kind of stuff that's going on inside of Resolve.
Yeah, I'm a little out of the loop on that stuff. As far as I know, a lot of it uses your GPU, and so having a really good GPU is essential. And yeah, I mean, this happens with all technology, right? It's like, it's the reason you have to get a new phone, because the new software uses more hardware, uses more power, and that becomes the standard. And then developers make stuff that is harder to use, that takes advantage of that new hardware. And then you have to update, and you update to the new software, and that software uses more hardware. So you have to get better hardware, and it's always that, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the same is true with Premiere and Resolve, and, you know, just about every app that is consistently being developed and trying to be made better and stuff. So, I mean, it definitely is the case with Resolve. I mean, I would say in my experience, Resolve runs better than Premiere overall on most things. And there's other cases too. Like, I've definitely seen, you know, Premiere use certain types of video and it plays back really, really nicely, where that same video won't play as back well in Resolve. And then and the opposite too, you know, it kind of depends on what it's optimized for.
Well, you are now. I mostly use PC, but I always say, like, I'm not really an Apple Mac guy, and then I look and I go, oh, there's my MacBook Pro, there's my Apple Watch, there's my iPhone, there's my
sure,
Mac
you're not.
Mini.
They have
like,
you. Don't worry.
iPad Pro, everything. I'm like, I am a Mac guy, but I tend to edit PC specifically because when there are updates, upgrades, and things change and Resolve, and if the requirements change, it's much harder. Like when you buy a Mac, you're kind of stuck with what you got. About the only thing you can update on a Mac is the OS. You can't go like, oh, I'm going to very quickly increase the amount of RAM on my Mac.
Yeah.
So what do you use? Are you a PC guy? Are you a Mac guy, or a bit of both?
Yeah. For my main workstation, I have PC, Windows. And then for, I have a laptop that's just, it's like I think it's a M1 MacBook Air. So
yeah, I use a MacBook Pro for traveling, and mostly because that not only are the M1 chips excellent for the size, for that compact. If you're a laptop person, I really think that Apple, the MacBooks are head and shoulders above what Windows operating systems can do in a laptop, just because I don't think people realize it's like, hey, I've got a 3080 GPU inside of my laptop. I'm like, yeah, but that's not the same 3080 GPU that they put inside of a desktop. It's the specs are not the same. They're diminished. They beat them down for size and getting inside of that small laptop.
Yeah.
Whereas with the MacBooks and the M1, now M4, M5 soon to come, they're really powerful, and the battery life is stupid. I can get on a plane with fully charged MacBook.
Yeah, I don't even know
fly for 6 hours editing, and have 3/4 of a charge when I land.
Yeah,
and I love that.
It's wild.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you a question. So for people in the chat, like, some of you guys are laptop users, and some of you are Mac users, and some of you guys are PC users, and some of you guys are desktop system users. How many of you guys are using like some kind of a mouse? A lot of people are trackpad users. Tell me in the chat, like, are you trackpad or are you a mouse user? Because I like to get a feel. A lot of times people, I'll give them a tip. Like, one of the things I watched you do, Casey, like, it was really easy for you to go around and click inside of your preview window in Fusion and zoom in. I'm assuming, what kind of mouse are you using, Casey, to do the work on that you have right now?
I'm using
a pen.
Yeah, a pen. Yep.
Nice. Do you find that sometimes the pens, one of the problems I have with pens is they don't seem to play well with the iPad. When you get to the iPad version, it's like, oh, I don't like it. Works well with a PC. Is there a reason you use a pen over a mouse? Is it just something, did you switch from one to the other at some point in time?
Yeah. I mean, when you're working in Fusion, a pen display is amazing, especially when you're masking, that kind of thing, drawing. And so I find myself doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And, so it's quite fast. in my opinion. And I actually have a video a while back of me trying to use a pen versus a mouse, but I was using a like a track, not a track, I don't know what it's called, like a Wacom, not a Cintiq thing on the thing. Anyway, and the difference that it made was actually touching the screen, right? Because that I feel like I'm really accurate with. And the other one, it's this kind of disconnect that you do have to get used to. And I'm better at it now that I've used a pen a lot, but you do have to get used to it. But now I feel like when I use a mouse, I can use a mouse and I feel fine with it, but it feels disconnected, right?
Really?
Whereas here, I feel like I can really grab the footage and like move it around and like mess with stuff. And it's a very different thing, especially when you're compositing.
Yeah, I'm a mouse guy just because there's so many other things that I do other than editing with my day that a lot of times it doesn't necessarily, a lot of the digital audio workstation stuff that I do when I'm making music lends itself to a mouse a little bit easier.
Sure. Yep.
And it's not that it's better, right, correct, like anything else, but it is interesting to see what people are using. A lot of people using a mouse, which is great. I tell people all the time, definitely look into getting a mouse or a pen if that's where you want to go. Find something to get away from trackpads, because I feel that if you're editing in Resolve on a trackpad, it's like running in sand. like you'll run, you'll go, you'll move, but it's so much harder than using something that allows you to quickly zoom in, center wheels, things like that. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Let me do this. I'm going to go with, who do we have here? This is Andy with a lot of extra letters in his Andy. Andy R is a trackpad user. Andy R, reach out to Megan at danielbatal.com. I'm going to send you the same mouse that I'm using for Christmas, my friend. I think these are great. These are my favorite. We'll let you see if you think the same, but I can't have trackpads users in the chat and struggling along. So, that's a little Christmas gift for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
especially with Resolve having a 3-button mouse with a scroll wheel. I mean, you have to.
Yeah. Oh, there's wheels on this mouse that I don't even use. I mean, pretty much, that center wheel, especially for things like when you're copying and pasting color grading or anything like that, where you can just go select the other, you just click, and it, like the center wheel click is super useful. More than anything else, it's when I'm especially in the edit page and I'm up in the preview window and I want to zoom in, zoom out, and move around and quickly find something. Yeah. That center wheel is everything. It gives you the zoom, and then the left click hold on the center wheel allows you to move the whole preview window around once it's zoomed in. So that's one of those things that I think like it's a no-brainer for me. But I'm going to have to try a pen, because if you're liking it, I want to be more like you grow up, Casey.
Yeah.
This is my goal. And I mean, I'm not going to cut my hair.
I just copy what I see Darren and Cullen doing. That's all. I'm just a big fake.
That's exactly what I do. And while we're here, let's do this. It looks like Mirza Misbahul Raza. I just butchered your name. Wow. I butchered your name.
I'm so sorry.
You are also a trackpad user. This is what I'm going to do, my friend. I'm going to also send you out this exact same mouse. It's the Logitech MX Master 3. I love this one. It's been my favorite. They're really useful. When we get in touch, I'll find out if you're a Mac user or a PC user to make sure that you can attach it quickly. They attach to both. The thing I love is I can use that same mouse with PC or Mac wherever I'm going. So when I travel, it's the one thing that comes out of my studio. I'm like, grab my mouse, because if I'm on a plane, I just want to be able to quickly work. Yeah. No mouse pads needed. Everything nice and easy. So.
Hey, Dan, what's a chance you could say that one again? Because you went way too fast for me.
It's on screen right now. Mirza Misbah. I'm going to get this wrong. Mirza Misbahul Raza. How close was I? Yell at me in the chat. Mirza Misbahul Raza. Trackpad user. You got that one?
Got it.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Megan. So listen, let me go through this. If you have questions in the chat, please shout them out, especially Fusion questions, because we've got what I consider the guy, the authority on simplifying Fusion. And I definitely want to make sure if you have questions, don't ask me, ask Casey, because he's the guy who's going to be able to give you the straight answer. Well, I have to fumble around and figure out how to do it. He's so much smarter than I am. The difference I found with the tutorials of Daniel Batal is every explanation are logical and meaningful. I will always be able to connect the dots meaningfully. I appreciate that. Yep, listen, my whole thing has always been, I'm a slow learner, and I'm one of those people like, listen,
Just taking you along with me.
you're on my slow learning journey.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people. It's like when I get too much information thrown at me at once, and when it starts coming at me, like people are saying things like I already know that, I get lost. I'm like, take a minute to go, listen, if you do something, tell me what it is you're doing, like zoom in into that area. If it's on screen, could you zoom in so I can see it? Cause I'm trying to follow along. And could you maybe tell me why you're doing that? And that's the only reason I make content the way I do is I go like, I build it so that if I watch the video, hopefully I would be able to look back and follow along.
That's later you can remember.
Right, dude, I can't even tell you how many times the noob series that we've done. I can't tell you how many times because a lot of the times the community will ask a question and it's a great question. I'm like, I don't know the answer. I'll go research. I'll figure out the way I think I would do it, and I'll make a short video. A year later, I'll be in a situation like, oh, I need to do that thing. I remember I made a video on it. I have no idea how to do it again. I have to go back and watch my own short and go, where was it? Where was the feature? How do I find it? So, I mean, I'm making a handbook for myself as much as anyone else, I guess. Let me scroll through. Some of the people in the chat saying, I wanted to edit for the last 10 years and your videos have broken down the barriers stopping me this whole time. Appreciate it. That's awesome. Love hearing that.
Amazing.
Let's see. Fusion. One of the things I want to ask you, Casey, when it comes to like we were just talking about this earlier, manual rotoscoping versus Magic Mask. Now, Magic Mask itself even has changed quite a bit recently with the newer version. The Magic Mask, I think it was as of 20. Like I all of the videos where I ever showed anybody that you draw a line inside of someone, it'll mask it out. It's like no lines. Now it's dots. Can you show us some of the updated masking capabilities inside of Fusion so people can have a little better feel of how to mask and when to mask and maybe even how to track a mask?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so I have this shot. It's only 13 frames because I don't want to go insane. You'll notice that all of my tracking tutorials are about that long because that's about how long you can work on this before you just lose your mind. Okay, so let's say we wanted to isolate this girl from the background. A lot of people, I'd say the first thing you would try is Magic Mask, and that might work perfectly. All right, so let's try it. Magic Mask, you just load that on, and then you boop the screen. Okay, so we're going to boop her head, and we'll just see how this works. So that's going to isolate her face, which could be great if that's what we wanted to do. If we boop some other part of her body, we can kind of keep doing that until it recognizes, oh, this is a little girl, and we're going to outline her. Okay. And let's just keep going here. Let's see if it does any more. I think I wasn't supposed to do that one.
Now you've done it.
But yeah.
But what happens if, like, this is one of the confusing things for me, Casey, like with this dot system, like once you booped her face, I can no longer see her body. So how do I know where booping is a technical term here, people. Well, how do I know where to boop next?
Yeah, there's that. Well, you can do a couple things. I mean, one is you could just go to your immediate in and look at that. There's probably a fancy way, but I kind of forgot where that is. But basically, you just
all you did there is you're doing a trick that maybe not everybody knows. You can click on a node and you can hit either 1 or 2 in your keyboard and it'll put it up either in one of the preview windows. But there's a thing you do where you kind of left click hold and throw the node up into the preview window. Yeah. And it's just like a quick way to go, hey, I want to see this node. And that's all you're doing is throwing it up into one of the 2 preview windows, right?
Yep. I'm just taking it and dragging it up here. You could also hit 1 or 2 on the keyboard. It's just easier with a pen. And I didn't used to do that. I always hit 1 or 2 until I started using a pen. And now that's all I do.
That's +1 for the pen, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a pen, throw it.
Use a
Whenever
pen.
you have a pen, throw it.
If you're really serious, no, I'm just kidding.
Get a pen and throw it.
Yeah. Okay. So we have her pretty well selected here. Really, the thing with Magic Mask is you want to get a good mask on this first frame and then track it. You don't want to have a terrible mask and then try and fix it later. You want to try and get it as good as you can. So I'm going to zoom in here, and here it's like kind of selecting extra parts. I could hold Alt and click this, and that's going to make a red dot, and it's going to kind of cut back on this a little bit. And so that's kind of the idea, is I want to make sure that this is all selected. This is going to have a hard time because it's not as high contrast here. See, we have this kind of edge and it's not as high contrast, but I think it's going to be pretty good. So there's two modes for Magic Mask. There's faster and there's better. Faster tends to be pretty good a lot of the time, depending on what you're masking. If it's something that's kind of solid, that doesn't have soft edges, or it doesn't have wispy hair and that kind of thing, faster tends to work pretty well. But for this one, because we have this hair, I might try the better selection. And that's going to do a pretty good job of selecting just her hair. And the problem is that it's going to make the other edges a little bit blurry. And so this is kind of what I'm talking about when it comes to Magic Mask being pretty good for a lot of stuff. Let's just see how this goes. I'm going to track this back and forth. And this is, I mean, it uses AI and it does just a insanely good job considering.
Yeah, it's very good.
Right? It's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job. It would take a really long time for me to get a mask this good manually. Okay.
How are you? Well, quick question from the chat from Jake's Move. How are you zooming in and out? Now I know you're using a pen. When it comes time to zoom in on your preview window, how are you doing that with your pen?
I'm just, it's like a scroll wheel. It's a on my pen, if I hold the middle button and scroll and move it to the right or left, that scrolls it, but it's the same as the scroll wheel, I believe, on yeah, because like if you have an actual mouse, which I do have one here, this is my party mouse. Yeah, if I scroll, I hold Control and scroll. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways depending on the mouse you get to zooming in. There is in the upper left, there is a zoom in the very upper left of the preview window. There is a zoom amount that actually has a drop-down menu, and you can change the value if you were, you know, if you were on something that was giving you trouble trying to zoom in, you can change it that way too. But yeah, that's interesting. I've never used a pen inside of Fusion, so I'm gonna have to add that to my list.
Yeah, but it's nice because yeah, with the pen I can scroll real quick. I can move this around, you know, and it's just very fluid and very easy, right? So I have my Magic Mask here, and that's pretty good. And let's just see what this looks like on the background here. Let's just merge this over itself. So this is the part this is something that people get confused about, is when you merge something over itself or you split a node into a couple different ways. Really what we're doing is we're connecting an image to each of these nodes, all right? The image that we're connecting is this media in. So we're starting with this image, okay? And then this Magic Mask, this is starting with this image. The merge is also starting with this image. And these are just like two different paths, two different images that we're making from it. One looks like this. The other one looks like this. And so now we're going to put this image over this image using the merge. Okay, so I'm going to put this into the foreground. And now it looks the same because we're laying one image over itself with a mask. The difference is, because we have this selected, we could do something like grab a color corrector and I can adjust the color, and it's only going to apply to that mask.
All right, so this is not unlike if you had if you had a track you were on the edit page and you had a duplicated track, a track basically identically on top of itself, the bottom one completely unaffected, and then the top one maybe you masked out somebody. So it's still showing the track below it. But here, because you're splitting it right from the original track, this is one of those things where you're learning the language of Fusion. It's doing the same kind of thing. You're layering the identical track over itself. The top track has the little girl masked out. The bottom track is the entire track with nothing unaffected. Yep. And that ability to do those little things like that are huge tricks.
Yep. It's the same thing as if I duplicated this and ran it. See, you can see how it's the same exact thing. If I connect this, it's the same thing as duplicating this. It's just a little faster. It's a little easier to know that this is the same thing visually, right? Because if you have a duplicate, it's hard to tell. Like that's the one thing I don't like about working with layers is you have to duplicate layers all the time for various things. And then you're like, oh, well, I actually want to change out that image. And then you have to go out and change all of the duplicates or build it in a way that kind of uses a sub clip or something like that. But this is a really nice way because I can see visually I'm using this image twice, one here and one here, right? That's the part I like.
Yes, and then the color the color node you're using in the middle is just changing the top one where it merges back in. This is also really useful, isn't it, for things like if you wanted to take someone in your footage and say, I want to put an outline, like an outer stroke around them, or make them glow, or give them a little drop shadow to have them pop out of that piece of footage. You could put that in place of the color corrector node and make them glow or make them pop or do things like that. Correct, too, right?
Absolutely.
Am I on the right track? See, look at
Yeah,
it's not,
for sure.
It's not my first rodeo here.
So yeah, I mean, a magic mask is just a way to isolate things pretty much. And I mean, that's rotoscoping in general, right? And so if you put that together, like I said, if you don't do anything to either of the images, it looks the same. But what's cool is now that we have this kind of broken out, you kind of break it out into layers, right? And so now if we want to put some text behind her or something, we could do some text. Here's my text image. And then I can put this in between the background and the foreground. And it's really interesting because with layers, you know, you would have like the background layer in your layer stack here, then you would have the midground, and then you'd have the foreground, right? We're doing that same thing, except for the background's here, the midground will be here, and the foreground's here. So we're building this in steps, 1, 2, 3. This middle step is going to be a merge like this. And now look how that works.
Nice.
Isn't that cool?
Text right behind her. That's awesome.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, essentially how a lot of stuff, you know, like you see it on TikTok videos and stuff. It's a very similar idea of you're automatically rotoscoping somebody, maybe not the most perfect rotoscope job, but it's really quick. It's really easy. And now you can put stuff behind them. But that's kind of how you would do that in Fusion. The difference here is that you can edit this and combine this with all different kinds of other stuff to make a really, really good mask if you need to. Like this, for something like this, especially if it's like for a social post or something like that, I mean, it's probably going to be just fine. See, now we have the magic mask kind of messing this up a little bit, which is annoying. But anyway, the idea there is it's a good enough mask. And that's what magic mask can do a lot of the time, is do something that's quick, that's good enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love it, and I use it a ton specifically for that reason, because it'll get like something like that. I just want to take someone in a piece of footage and I want to mask out the background and change the background. Nice and easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't overcomplicate the conversation. There was a question. Let me just see. I want to ask this question of you, Casey. Let me make you full screen here. One of the things, because Fusion, a lot of people ask me this question, and it's hard to really get your mind around it. Like if you're working in the timeline and you are doing something in the timeline and you say you change the project to, one of the people asked, like, I want to learn how to make shorts using DaVinci Resolve. Well, it's really easy to go into the project settings and you can change the settings to the aspect ratio to go, oh, I'm going to use vertical resolution. There's actually a box right under the resolution you can tick and it'll turn it into a vertical video. Yeah. But a lot of times when you're bringing footage into Fusion, it default, because it's clip-based editing, it's going to default to like this full screen 16:9. If it's 16:9 footage and you are making this into a short, is there a way that you can quickly take the preview window and have it reflect a vertical 9:16 aspect ratio in Fusion, so you don't have to deal with this 16:9 piece of footage showing you something different than might be going on in the edit page?
Yeah, it's possible they had an update that makes this a little easier. And you feel free to tell me. But the way that I do it is you can grab a background node, and that background node by default is going to be your starting footage resolution. Okay. And so I can select this background node, go to image, and adjust the width and height here. And so I could make this, 2160 by 3840, and that's going to be this vertical aspect ratio. And I can set that as the first layer, the most background in my comp here. And anything that that's going to set the resolution of my comp. And so now if I merge the stuff over that background, it's going to crop it and scale it and everything to this. And so that's how I would do it reliably. I think there are other ways to do it that are somewhat maybe more automated, but also less predictable.
Right.
But I like,
no, that's how
this.
I've done it before too. It's like, there's a weird thing that it's hard to get used to the fact, like, well, why do I need a background node? I'm not using any background in this. And really what it's doing is it creates this sort of, I think of it more like if you were painting and you had to buy your canvas basically, and go, all right, I'm going to paint a picture. What size canvas do I need before I start painting?
Yeah.
If you want it to be a tall, narrow canvas or a very wide, long canvas, that's what putting a background node for me in Fusion does, is it says, here's your canvas size. And now you can start adding things on top, and it's going to typically, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here too, when you've got a project set to a specific aspect ratio, when you bring a background in, it usually conforms to that project aspect ratio, if that's 1080, 4K, vertical, landscape, portrait mode, and it'll conform to that. So it's a real easy way to start. And you can dial back the opacity of the background and go, look, it can be completely transparent.
Yeah.
It's just defining the size of the canvas that you're working on.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it. That's how I do it most of the time.
That's awesome. All right, cool. All right, listen, anybody in the chat, if you are interested, if you are a free user of DaVinci Resolve and you'd like to step up to a studio license, type the word studio inside of the chat, and we're going to pick someone out from the chat and give them a studio license, courtesy of our good friends at Blackmagic Design. I got to shout out the great Terry Frechette for just sending me a handful of licenses. He is our guy. He's our contact point from DaVinci Resolve, does all of the, head of marketing and works with the creator liaison as well. And he's just such a wonderful guy. He only lives about an hour south of me. He lives right in Massachusetts.
Oh, that's cool.
And he's such a good guy. Like, anytime you need anything, I'm like, Terry, I need this, brother. Can you help me out? And he's like, yeah, let me get, I'll have something for you by the end of the week. And he's right there. The thing, one of the things I love about Blackmagic Design, DaVinci Resolve, the entire company is, there are different people making software out there, but the people behind the software and people behind the companies, they mean so much to me. Like, if there are two companies that make a decent product and one of them is like I talk to the reps there and they're kind of stuck up snobs and they kind of get an attitude. And then another company is like, they're super helpful and all they want to do is help creators and they want to help community members. I'm like, I will work with that company every day of the week over someone who is just, doesn't really seem to care about creators and helping people learn to grow and become better editors.
Every interaction I've had with Blackmagic Design has been that way. It's they really, really care, and they'll do anything they can to make your life easier and make it easier for people to create things. And that's pretty much what I'm about. So I'm really excited to work with them. It's really cool.
I love it. Casey, can you do me a favor? Can you scroll through the chat and can you just pick someone who happened to type some version of Studio, and let's give away a Studio license?
How about the Living Brick 56?
Can you, let me see, the Living Brick 56. Can you find that one, Megan? It's just the chat moves so fast. I'm like, I need to find it. Megan, if you would be so kind. The Living Brick 56. Congratulations. We are going to be sending you a studio license. All you need to do is reach out to Megan, Megan, at danielbatal.com. She will confirm that you are the owner of that channel. And then we will get a studio activation key sent to you so that you can download, install Studio, and start using it.
Yeah,
I will say,
pretty exciting.
Are there any warnings that you would give somebody or advantages from using the free version versus using the Studio version? Yes, there are more, because the free version to me gives away about 85% of the features are just there. Yeah. But there are differences in the Studio version. And is there anything that you think people should be aware of if they're swapping over to the Studio version from the free version?
Gosh, no. The Studio version is just free version, but better. The one thing I'll say is that if you're using the free version and it doesn't work very well, and like your computer seems too slow, the Studio version probably won't fix that. It's probably also going to be slow. And it's not a magic thing. It's the Studio version is more optimized in some ways, but it's mostly there's more features, right? And so somebody said earlier, like, oh wow, the Studio version is so fast. This is not because I'm using Studio version. It's because I have a really good computer and I'm using footage that's easy to play back, right?
Yeah.
That's not because of that.
That is one of the things too. Like, you know, you were talking about that earlier, like the computer specs you need to run it. It's funny. I get a lot of people who will say to me, like, I don't understand. My computer meets the minimum system requirements and I'm struggling with my project in Resolve. And that's the first thing I tell people, like, listen, if you're looking at the minimum system requirements and that's your target and you go, yeah, I just pass all those requirements, you are not going to have a good experience with Resolve. I tell people all the time, you want to shoot for as much as your budget can exceed those minimums. You really, there's a lot of great sites out there that talk, and like I said, Casey has a great video that talks about building systems specifically for Resolve. And you really want to think about the kind of workflow, how you're going to use Resolve, and then make sure your system is built to handle that kind of workflow. Because if you're leaning heavily into Fusion, it's going to be leaning into your graphist card more often than not. If you're leaning, you start doing things like, you know, you were talking about noise reduction. For anyone out there, when Casey was talking about noise reduction, he's not talking about audio cleaning up the noise in the background. It's also noise in your video when your video itself can be grainy or can have some particulate and not feel very clear, and you're trying to get rid of some of the noise and smooth it out. That takes video noise reduction probably takes more computer resource power than almost anything in Resolve.
It's definitely up there for sure.
Eats it. Maybe with the exception of AI super scaling, which takes your footage and basically turns it from, like, you know, from 4K to 8K, 12K, and it just makes the files huge and it can really wrestle.
If you want to destroy your system, pretty much try and use depth map. That's the way to do it.
Depth map, yeah, that's a tough one too. And I think that's what it is. I think some people go, oh, well, if I have a decent computer, it should just run the software. But the reality is that, you know, like, I mean, my computer is fairly robust. I have many computers, but the main one that I edit on, you know, it's running top of the line, you know, CPUs, GPUs. It's got 128, you know, gigabytes of RAM, and I've got 8 terabytes internally with, you know, I mean, I try to keep a strong computer out there, but I can bog it down with a heavy project, especially if I'm using footage that might be high compression codec footage like HEVC or H.265,
that's I think
AV1.
The biggest factor is that people don't realize, right? Is they get a decent computer and they'll be like, all right, yeah, it's just really struggling. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, well, I'm editing 6K drone footage, H.265 footage, and I'm trying to do magic mask. And I'm like, you can't, like, no computer is going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to, it does not perform that well at this point in time. The compression of your footage, the more compressed it is with certain settings. I know there's people who are nerdier about this than I am, but there are certain settings that will make it harder to play back, even if it's at a different resolution, right? Whereas if you have, generally, if the footage is really, really small in file size, but it looks really good, it's going to be hard to play back.
Say that again so people can absorb that in.
If the file is really small, like the megabytes of the file is really small, but the footage looks great and it's high resolution, it's going to be harder to play back, like, for your editor. Okay. Because it has to do all kinds of magic behind the scenes to make that work. And it can sometimes do it really easily if you're playing it back from the beginning. But if you stop and then go back a couple frames and keep going like this, the way that it compresses that is it kind of moves frames around and it does some magic in between the frames. And so every time it plays another frame, it has to look at all the other frames and do the magic real quick to show you that frame instead of just showing you the image.
Yep.
When it's less compressed, it's like simpler. It's just, here's the image. Next frame, here's the image.
Yeah, but those are
image,
also
right?
much larger file sizes, which is, I think that's what some people don't realize, is that video compression is literally built to optimize playback. Like, if you have a piece of video footage, if you're like exporting from DaVinci Resolve and you want to keep a small file size and have it look really good, what happens is you put like HEVC or AV1, you put a lot of compression, smart compression on it that can really squash the file size, but still make it look pretty darn good. And what happens is when you bring footage like that from like DJI drones, it's all H.265 or whatever, and you bring it into Resolve, every time you're doing something like trying to color grade it, trying to do a magic mask, trying to do pretty much anything, Resolve has to read through all of that compression, then apply the effect, and then get it back up on your screen. So it's almost like you've got footage that's like in French, and Resolve is trying to speak English, so it has to translate it, figure out what got said, do what it needs to do, and then bring it back into the right language. So it's working through all that heavy compression, which is one of the reasons we've talked about proxies last time you were on here. I mean, what have your thoughts changed about proxies and using proxy files at all?
No. Yeah, proxies, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a smaller version of the media that you're using. It's an easier to play back version generally. So you can make something easier on your system by either making it a smaller resolution or making it an easier codec to play back. Sometimes that codec is actually a bigger file size, which is really interesting, but it's easier to play back because of the compression thing, right? And so if you have something like 6K H.265 footage or something like that, that's hard for your computer to play back, you could convert it to 1080p ProRes footage, and it might be bigger, but it'll play back easier, which is really, really interesting because of the compression.
It's almost counterintuitive. Like, wait a minute, the file size is so much bigger, but now it's going to work better. It's easy to work with. Yeah.
You can think about proxies there's two reasons to make proxies. One is you're optimizing for file size. For instance, if you're sharing on the cloud or something, or you're sending it to your friend to edit or something, that would be a reason to make proxies. The second reason is for playback. And they're not necessarily the same. They can be, but they're not necessarily the same. And so if you want your footage to play back really, really easily, you want to choose proxies that your computer likes. And Resolve is especially really good at playing back ProRes files. Like, that's its favorite. And so if you drop ProRes into Resolve, you can have a pretty decent ProRes file. And as long as your storage is fast enough, it's not going to have too much trouble playing it back. But if you have a compressed file, even if it's lower resolution, it might have more trouble. And so you're optimizing for a certain thing.
Are there any other things that you find in your community? We kind of, some of our community, as we can see in the chat, we have overlapping community members. Some of us know, some of them watch your content, some of them watch mine, some of them watch both of ours. Do you ever find that there are things that people are just missing out on or making mistakes it's making their life a lot harder? Just because, and maybe we're not doing a good enough job of making it super clear, because I feel like sometimes people will come in and go, I don't understand why this is so hard. And I'll give them like an answer like, oh, tell me exactly what you're doing. Yeah. And I want, are there any tips that you would give to people out there? Like, hey, if you're struggling in Resolve, if your footage is choppy, are there any things that you would tell them to go like, hey, these can make some of your editing chores a little bit more smooth and put less stress on you? Besides proxies is one way for sure.
Yeah. I actually have a whole video on this that I put out a couple weeks ago, and it's called 15 Years of Workflow Wisdom in 15 Minutes or something like that. So go and check that out for more of this. But it mostly comes down to, you want to make sure that your workflow makes sense and is easy for you and you understand it before you get waist deep in a project. Okay. Yeah. That's the biggest thing I can tell somebody is, if you're going to, let's say, go shoot a documentary, all right, and you're going to capture all of your footage with a certain camera, you're going to bring it in and you're going to edit it and you're going to color grade it and all of that stuff. There's all these little pieces there that have the potential to be a big problem. And so the best thing that you can do, in my opinion, is work out those details to where you understand them before you're put in a place where there's a lot of pressure on you. And that's the thing that it stresses people out, makes them want to quit, is when you are, you're supposed to deliver a video to a client tomorrow, and you're halfway through editing it and you wish you figured out how to color grade it, but it's not playing back and it's crashing, and you can't sync some of the audio. It's a whole list of these little problems that seem really huge when you're in the middle of a huge project. Okay. So figuring out the little things that might come up and getting a good understanding of that before you get into the huge project, that is the difference between somebody who can handle things like this and somebody who gets overwhelmed and quits and delivers it 2 weeks late and, is stressed out. Like, I don't want that for you, because you don't need to do that. You know what I mean?
It can be, seriously. And especially if you're on the earlier stage of your Resolve journey, one of the things that can be really frustrating is when you just haven't learned some of the things to make your life easier. And I get all the time. I get comments from new users who are like, "This is the worst software editor ever. It's crap. I would never use this. I can't get my export to look good. It always looks terrible." And it's like, you have to kind of nicely say to somebody, "Hey, listen, I know you're frustrated, but I promise you, it's not the software. It's you. We just need to figure out what you're wrestling with, and let's see if we can help you straighten that out."
Yeah.
Because, they're using this software to color grade some of the, most, the biggest motion pictures in the world. And it's not because it's making those motion pictures look fuzzy and hard to be, hard to visualize. Quick question
you have
right
that
here.
Trouble with things, it's almost always there is a concept that you don't quite understand.
Yep.
Because like software developers, they make software a certain way with a certain thinking. Right. And if you can align your thinking with how the software engineers are thinking, then it makes sense. Right. But if you're coming at it from a different way and you think, oh, well, it should happen like this, A, B, C, this is how editing a video should work. There's a certain value to that I understand. Like it should conform to some kind of expectations, but you have to be malleable with the way that you approach things if you're using software that somebody else made.
Especially when it's being made by a company that is, for all intents and purposes, a hardware company first that leans into broadcast kind of equipment. So, DaVinci Resolve and Blackmagic Design didn't come out of the gate buying DaVinci systems thinking this is going to be perfect for, fresh young start YouTubers out there. It's, It's been adopted by a lot of us because we just love the software, and they offer a crazy free version, and they have a single lifetime studio license, and we love it once you get into it. But there is a steep learning curve. Quick question here. This is one of those questions that I'll get questions like this all the time. And it's one of those ones that I go, oh boy, this is where I worry someone is what I call over your skis. Are you out over your skis? Like someone says, what about if I want to track birds in flight? How do I do that in the free version? The first thing I'm thinking is, well, you know how to track. I mean, Casey just showed you how to track. Right? Yeah. And he showed you everything he showed us for tracking earlier in this is available in the free version. You can get a planar tracker in the free version. You can use a regular tracker in the free version. But the immediate questions I'm thinking is, what does your footage look like? What does your footage look like? Are those birds like super small, way in the background, blurry, and they're flying 100 miles an hour? That's going to be incredibly difficult to track. But is this like footage of just birds that are like a flock of birds that are moving through the sky? Well, then you can do what Casey showed you. You can go, let me just take the planar tracker. I'm going to draw a big tracking area around the whole flock of whatever, a flock, I don't know whatever kind of birds we're using, a peck, a bushel of birds. Murder of crows.
Murder. Yeah.
And then you can track them moving if they're moving through the sky. And then tracking them is pretty simple, right? You just put a planar tracker on there, track them, and you go, great. Now I make a planar transform like Casey showed, and you can do whatever you want with it. But it really is one of those things. Think about, before you ever go into an edit, think about that question first. Why are you tracking birds? What was the mission of that? It's like, well, I wanted to make it look like whatever, the birds were pulling Santa's sleigh, so I needed the sleigh to follow the birds. Well, then make sure when you're finding the footage that you're doing, whether you're filming it yourself or whether you're licensing it from an asset house, make sure it really leans into the ability to be tracked so that it does the right things and it isn't all blurry and there's low contrast. There's simple things that I've learned along the way, like when there's pieces of footage that are like really low contrast and they're kind of fuzzy and it's hard to track, doing simple things like adding a color corrector node like Casey was doing where he was just changing the color of something, temporarily changing the heck out of the contrast and making it much more contrast, then track it. Because you're giving the tracker nodes a lot better contrast to be able to see what's going on. Then just pull the color corrector node away later on and you go, oh, I just needed it to be really super contrasty so it could track well. Any tips that you have for like things like that when people ask questions like, how do I track this really hard thing to track?
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing is just what you said. You can prepare your footage. This is a big concept that people don't understand sometimes. Is you can prepare your footage for a track and then kind of undo it, right? And so the birds is an example, right? If you have birds against a blue sky, let's say, you could make that image black and white and then change the contrast to where the sky is bright white and the birds are black, and then track that. And that might do a really good job tracking it. Whereas if you didn't do that, that tracker would say, I don't know, there's not enough contrast there, you know?
Yeah.
Because you can always remove stuff when it comes to Fusion. You can always just take things away and move it around or use a different version of it. It's really, really flexible when it comes to that. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how I would do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's neat little tips along the way for things. Thank you for the love from Poland. Much love from over here in the United States. I always joke that Casey is from Canada because the first time I met him, I was convinced he was from Canada because he was so nice.
Because I'm nice.
I'm like, there's no way you're from the United States. You're from Oregon, aren't you? I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, I'm from the Northwest. We're pretty nice over here. Not as nice as Minnesota,
nice there. So yeah, it's great to have so many different people from different parts of the world. Okay, let me do this. What's the pen? What's the make and model of the pen that you're using? You're not using a mouse, you're using a pen. What is that you're using?
This is a Huion Canvas. It's like the 24, I think, and got it a couple years ago on Black Friday. It's just the pen that comes with that.
Cool.
And yeah, it's a pen display.
All
and
right.
I've been really happy with it. I don't have any.
Now, what does it encompass? There's a pen, and then there's like there's whatever the pad is that you're writing on. Is that how it works, or does it work on any surface?
Oh, it's a monitor, and you draw on.
Oh, it's into the monitor. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because I know some people have tried to get pen and tablets and tried to use them, and they've had issues inside of Resolve. And I meant to ask you that question, like, what is it
on the
inside
iPad,
of the monitor itself? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's different types of tablet pens that people they've used, and they've had bad luck. And I've never had an answer for that. And I was like, oh man, I should have asked him, like, what is he using?
I don't
But
either.
it's inside of the whole monitor that you're using. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, let me see. Let me scroll through the chat here because I do want to catch up with some of these questions. Birds in flight. That birds in flight is a tough one. What is this question? It's got a lot of words. I like a lot of words. Well, will someone please explain something, how to do something and wonder why it's not working and explain, wow, this is a tough one. But Skipper or something. Exactly. I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly how I feel about that topic as well. I don't know what that meant. I wish I did. Sometimes we get lost in translation here. Let me see. What was this comment? My DaVinci Resolve starts to lag when I edit long form videos, and I am forever stick to my old YouTube morals. When you're editing longer videos, that's a perfect example of typically what happens is when your videos are longer, there's more information. And as you start putting more things on and it starts playing through, and maybe you have some text overlays and some color grading, what happens is each new thing you're asking Resolve to do starts compounding the system resource demands of what you're asking computers to do. When it's short, before it has a time to complete, chance to really stumble and compound things, you're kind of done. If you're doing a 30-second video, it's like, oh, that wasn't too bad. But definitely if you're making longer form videos, I can't stress enough, doing things like making proxies and giving Resolve some alternate versions of the footage to work with just while you're editing. Because when you go to export, by default, it's going to use the originals from your camera or whatever you filmed with, what you captured, and it's going to export those. Unless you tell it, use the proxies in my export, it's going to use the camera originals by default. But it's going to make the whole editing process, especially for longer videos. I have this too. Every now and then, I'll make a really long, crazy video, whether usually it's a music video. I've seen you do it, Casey. You've done some cool movies that were like the one where the delivery girl goes to the house and then like the homeowner tries to kill her, and then there's a whole plot twist. I'm like, it was amazing the amount. I watched that whole thing and I watched the behind the scenes, like you just break like blood on the sky, the moon roof of the car. There were so many little things that were going on in that film, and it was a short film and it was really well done. The monster looked great.
Thanks.
It was just amazing. But what I loved about it was when you break it down, you're like, you're using a lot of the fundamentals. It's a big production, but it's big in the sense that you're using a lot of the basic fundamentals. Like, I'm going to mask this, or I'm going to color change this, or I'm going to add some rain. I remember there was part of it, like the scene was like a car, and it was raining at one part or not raining at one part. And you needed to create that rain. So from the shot inside the car, you needed to mask out the windows and had like a fake rain effect going on that you couldn't tell, that only needed to be seen outside and through the windows of the car. And it was but simple stuff like just masking, getting it all right, masking around like there was a person sitting in the driver's seat, so you don't want rain inside the car covering her. Do you think that people, do you think that there are fundamentals that people miss and get so focused on trying to do these really large effects without taking the time to learn the building blocks and the fundamentals of how to do that? Do you see that in your community, that it's hard to get people to go, don't make the big monster movie first, figure out how to mask out a window and make it look like it's raining outside of a car? Like, learn that stuff first.
Yeah. That is the number one biggest thing I could probably tell somebody is, if you want to make big effects and really cool stuff, you have to learn the little boring things, you know, because that's the thing, is like a big effect. And even those aren't that big of effects in the whole scope of things, but like a bigger, more complex effect is, you know, it's 500 little things all together. And if you don't know those little things, well, then you don't know the parts, you know, you don't know the parts to be able to do it. I mean, it's like playing music, right? If you don't know how to play one note, then you can't make a song, right? You have to understand that a song is full of a bunch of different notes. And then there's concepts like, you know, the key and progressions and, you know, repetitions and like all of that stuff. Like, there's all of that. And I feel like we want to jump to doing something really crazy and fancy and fun, and you don't spend time learning how to use a Bezier curve, like learning how to use the pen tool in Fusion or in the color page, because that is essential. I mean, most of that project was using the pen tool to draw masks. Wow. You know, I mean, that's and it seems boring, it seems dumb, but like, the master of something has mastered the basics. That's the biggest thing. And
I think that's
sexy as it is. Like,
that, I know that, because it's like, oh, do I have to learn multiplication, addition, subtraction before I start algebra? Like, yeah, you do, because all that other stuff will not make sense. The example I used to give, Casey, was, being from a music background, I remember, and I'm an older guy, I remember like when Eddie Van Halen hit the scene, right? And everybody wanted to learn to play guitar like Eddie Van Halen. So these people who had never played guitar before were picking up guitars and learning to finger tap. Yeah. And then you would put them in a band and they couldn't play music. They could finger tap. They could do like, what do you do? Make this like crazy solo. And it's like, all right, now we're going to play. They had no sense of timing. They didn't learn chord structure or music theory first. Yeah. So they learned this thing by imitating, but they had none of the foundations to understand why they were tapping, where they were tapping. They could just duplicate or parrot what they'd have seen instead of.
That's what happens when people watch tutorials, but they don't understand the basics.
Yes.
Like,
super important.
This is why, like recently, I mean, just being super transparent, like recently the views on my channel have gone down a lot. And the reason for that is partially because I'm focusing on teaching those basic concepts that are not very sexy, right? And really what I want is for somebody to watch one of my videos and to understand a basic concept that is foundational, that will really, really help them. And it's not as exciting as, you know, do this crazy TikTok effect and like, you know, make a portal and all this cool stuff that does get a lot of views. But it's super cool. It's super cool. But when you watch a video and you're like, okay, set the settings here. All right, make this. And then you do all this and you get a result, but you have no idea how you got there. Like, that's
or why you got
helpful.
there. Like, why you got there.
Yes.
Right? It's like cooking and someone says, take the egg, break it, put it in the pan, now mix it, now put it, and someone walks you through it. You could probably do it, but if you don't understand why you're using certain elements, why you're adding certain spices, why you're putting something on top of a stove instead of in the oven. These are all things that you learn that teach you the fundamentals of video editing that are so powerful. And especially a lot of people in the community here, we have a lot of people that are, that aspire to be editors to make money at it, working for other people. And I'm like, they ask me, what should I do? And the thing I always tell them is learn the fundamentals.
Yes.
Be so good at the basics that all of the other stuff that's trickier, that's going to be easy for you because you know how to combine basics to make something magnificent. And you can deal with something asking you, I want to do this, this, and this in my video. Could you take my raw footage and I need you to do this? And you'll go, I know all the basics of how to do those things.
Yeah. My son loves soccer. He's so into soccer. He's 11 years old and it's his favorite thing in the world. And a couple of years ago, he started playing soccer and he said, Dad, I want to be the best soccer player that I know. How do I get better at soccer? And I'm like, I don't know anything about soccer, but I guarantee you, if you touch that ball 1,000 times a day, you will be better at soccer than anybody you know, because nobody's going to do that.
Yep.
And that's what he does. And that kid is a freaking phenom, man.
That's
and
awesome.
I take full credit for that.
Good dad. Good
no,
dad.
it's because he's working hard at the stuff that is boring.
Yeah.
That's how you
It is. And you're absolutely right that part of that is unsexy, but learning that stuff, it's exactly what we do. I started the DaVinci Resolve for noobs. I'm like, let's start with the easy stuff.
Yes.
Just get this simple answer. I just want to learn all the basic stuff and components, and then I'll figure out how to start combining them. And that's what we tend to do more in the long form and live streams here. Let's do something fun. Let's do, this man's here. His name is Casey Faris, Casey Faris. The 22nd person to put his name in the chat will give away a studio license too. Megan, start counting. Casey.
Oh no,
Faris.
I'm gonna let you do that.
Spelling doesn't count as long as you're close. Count from the top.
Boy.
Casey Faris, get his name in the chat, people.
Oh boy.
I know.
That's
I'm putting you on the
exciting. Yeah,
spot
nobody
there.
wants to be like the first or fourth person.
Right. You go first. I want to be 22nd. 22nd person. 22 is the number today.
Oh boy.
Studio. We'll see if we can. Casey Faris. Yeah, close enough. 2, 3. Count him, Megan. I'll let her. Look, I put all the pressure on.
Yeah, I like how he
Megan's like, really? Megan's like, you couldn't say fourth
Yeah, just
person.
okay, I'll just count that real quick. There it is.
There it goes. It's going
You
up
monster.
miles an hour. All right, we're gonna count. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can count it. You guys tell me if we got the right one here. I've got at studio 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Gotta
This
learn
was
how to
number
count if you're a
10.
YouTuber, guys.
Right
That's
there,
all.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That was 15. I'm getting there. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And this one here is 22. As far as I can tell, it looks like, you guys tell me wrong if I missed it, it looks like Varkoden Productions. It's got Casey's name right, Mr. or Mrs. or Sir or Ma'am, whatever your pronouns are. We're going to send you a studio license courtesy of the fantastic people at Black Magic Design. Thank them very much
Sweet friends.
for doing this. We love them.
Yeah.
Listen, we don't identify. Whatever you are, you are. All right, Megan, do you have that written down? And make sure I got that right. I counted.
Yep,
that was
got
my
it.
22. Good, perfect. All right. And while we're here, let me do this. Let's see. Megan, pick another. Let me change gears here. I want to give away more of these mice right here, the mouse that I like using. If you're a trackpad user and you would like to upgrade and grab a Logitech mouse with a center wheel, write mouse into the chat, and we'll pick someone who typed the word mouse in, and we'll give you a mouse up for Christmas as well, or whatever holiday. Yeah, I swear that was one of the biggest things that I struggled with. When I travel, like I have forgotten to bring a mouse with me and had to use a trackpad.
Yeah.
Nothing makes me look more of an imbecile than I already am. And that's, the bar is pretty high to start with.
Yeah.
Is watching me on a trackpad.
I know.
can't do anything. It's so bad. Megan, randomly pick anyone that says mouse and we'll give away a mouse.
Awesome.
All right,
He's
we're
so
gonna go
kind.
with stop scrolling. Willie 79 9768.
Willie 9768. Willie, I would find, he went so fast. I'd find you and I'd put it on screen, but it's like there's so many. But Willie 9678. I think I said that right. We're going to give you this,
but that's okay.
We're going to give you the same Logitech MX Master 3 mouse that I use. I love it. It's great for PC. It's great for Mac. It works even on iPad. You can put a dongle on it, and you can actually edit. Dongle. That's the word of the day. Everyone loves a good dongle.
Dongle.
Yeah, I love them. So we're going to send that out to you as well. So listen, let me just go back into here. What do you think? I'm really trying to think, like, if you were to look at somebody who, this hat is getting so hot, man. I have too much trouble wearing a hat like this.
I can't do it anymore.
I can't do it. Christmas is over.
Everybody knows I'm jolly.
If you were to sit with someone who had just purchased DaVinci Resolve a week ago,
okay,
and they're opening it up and they're wrestling with it and they're frustrated, what is it what would the very first piece of advice or biggest piece of advice you would give to get them on the path to not being completely frustrated? Really quickly, Willie 7968. What I need you to do is reach out to Megan at danielbatal.com. She'll drop her email inside of the chat. MEGAN at my website, danielbatal.com, and she'll confirm that you are the owner of the site, Willie. And Willie, that's a female Willie, I think. So this is why we don't assign genders. We be very careful, and we'll make sure that we get this sent out to you wherever you're at, and we'll make sure we get one into your hands. All right. So Megan at danielbatal.com, and there you go. I see Willie just put her. Megan. Yeah, thanks, Megan, Chaos Coordinator. That's Megan's actual title. Did I tell you that?
Yes.
And she is the Chaos
That makes
Coordinator.
sense.
Because she folds it all together.
Everybody needs one of them.
Or two.
Yes.
She's at the point now, she's like, can I get my own sub chaos coordinator that I can assign tasks to because of all the things we have to deal with?
See.
So I was asking you, what would you say is the thing, like if someone just brand new to Resolve, overwhelmed, looking at 7 pages of DaVinci Resolve, and just like I came from CapCut, and I'm so frustrated and confused. What would be the kind of advice you would give to them to sort of get them at least on the path?
Gosh, I mean, the biggest advice I would say is make a video that feels laughably simple, laughably small, because it's the more you can work through it and the more you can get like work on this experience, I mean, the better. And really, like, you don't need to bite off a huge project, right? Like, that's the thing, is literally make something like this. This is just B-roll. This is just B-roll put together in the timeline as a story. That's all it is. There's no sound. There's no music. There's nothing like that. But starting with that and starting with the fundamentals of how the heck do I get around in the timeline? How do I make a clip shorter on the timeline? How do I move things around? How do I add a fade, right? Like, all of these things, they're just little things. And you can get really good at all of these little things in not very much time. If you're willing to do the small, easy things. The more you do this, I'm telling you, man, I would rather have somebody who's made 100 of these videos than somebody who made one crazy, amazing, cool, really cool, impressive video, because this person has learned a lot more. Guarantee it. Right.
Yeah. And I think that I don't know how to hammer that point home enough, because a lot of times people go, yeah, cool fundamentals. So how do you make it rain inside of an apartment while the outside looks like, the sky is on fire? And it's like, all of these things are accomplished through a combination of fundamentals. So if I've always said, people look at Resolve and they get really overwhelmed and they go like, okay, I need to learn, every one of the 7 pages. I need to know the media page. I need to know the cut page. I need to know the edit page. And then I need to learn Fusion completely. And I have to make sure I understand the color page and Fairlight. And then and I'm like, slow down. For me, I always say to people, listen, think of it like learning to drive. All right. When you go to get your driver's license, you're going to start getting accustomed to the car, and you're going to learn the steering wheel, the gas and the brake, and how to put it into gear. You do not need to know how to build a combustion engine to go get your license. And
Yes.
I say that to people who are using Resolve. Start simple, right? Like just open up the edit page. It feels like a lot of other video editing software. It's going to be layer-based, track-based. You're going to see video, you're going to see audio, you're going to see effects. You know, you're going to see a preview window. You're going to have the ability to have a little mixer down in the corner to mix your audio. You'll have a, you know, every time you click on things in the timeline, that little inspector in the upper right, that's going to show you a little more in-depth controls for things that you're doing. You're going to have, you know, transitions listed that you can drag right down into your timeline.
Yeah.
Get familiar with all that stuff and start getting familiar with simple things like how to insert a clip into your timeline if you've already got a bunch of stuff there. Make sure you understand the different modes, like the way that, you know, the selection mode versus the trim edit mode, especially if you're trying to extend a clip and you need everything after that clip to be pushed back when you do it. Learning the simple functionality of the edit page, I think opens up, you know, all of the basics that you can then go, oh, okay, what if I want to take this clip and I want to remove the background? Then you can start making a decision. Well, you can do that in the Fusion page, and you can actually also do that in the color page. Now let me show you both, and you decide which makes sense for your workflow.
Yeah.
Do you find, because you spend so much time in the Fusion page, do you find some of the features that are identical in the color page and in the Fusion page, something like magic masks, for instance? Do you find that there are pitfalls to using one feature on one page as opposed to another page in terms of workflow? Are there any times you go like, yeah, I just won't use that on the color page because of X?
Yeah. Typically it's, if you're doing something that's more complicated than just that one effect, you'd want to do it on the Fusion page, right? So if you're going to magic mask something, but you're going to put like a word behind them, and then you're going to have them glow, like that's something you do on the Fusion page. If you're going to magic mask somebody and just make them brighter, that'd be something I do on the color page, because you can do that really easily with one node, right? And so they typically will work the same way, and it's not that big of a deal. If you're doing like a single effect, it's not that big of a deal which one you choose. It's more of which one are you more familiar with. I mean, like for instance, like film grain or something, you could put that on in Fusion for your comp, or you could put it on later in color. It's not going to make that big a difference. The difference would be if you're going to like blur some, like a specific thing in the background of your multiple layered comp or something like that. You would want to blur that in the Fusion page rather than like take a mask into the color page and then blur it later, because there's just no, it's just more complicated to do that, even though it's easier in the color page to do a blur. You know what I mean?
There's a thing that, tell me if I'm off base here, because you've had a lot more experience with the software than I do. But one of the things that I found in my head, the way I justify it, is I really think that Fusion is clip-based editing. Like you're grabbing a clip and you're really working from the clip outward, not timeline so much, more of the clip. And when you go into the color page, you're dealing more with the timeline itself. I have found like simple things that they've improved it more recently, but even a few versions back, like you'd add a magic mask onto something in the color page, and then you go back to the edit page and move the footage or shift the footage, the mask would disappear, everything would be black, and like, what happened?
Yep.
It just didn't like timeline changes because it would change the things you told it to do in the color page. I don't know if that was my imagination, but it happened to me enough times that I went, listen, if I'm going to magic mask and I'm doing anything more with that footage back on the edit page, I'm going to do it in Fusion, because it seems to really stick to the clip. It really focuses on like that clip-based editing. Am I making that up?
I'm not sure. I've certainly experienced things like that, especially with the AI stuff with Magic Mask or like the depth stuff, things like that. I find are typically very finicky and will need to retrack or rethink or something like that. And so I find myself, especially if it's more than just one little thing really quick, I'll do stuff like render it out and bring it back into the timeline so that I know that it's going to stay the way that I had it, you know. And there's various ways to do that. But that's another one of those things that feels more complicated. It feels like you shouldn't have to do that, and so there's some resistance to it. Yeah. But I want to advise anybody watching this that even if it feels like you shouldn't have to do something, the truth is that if it makes your workflow faster and it's more smooth down the line, it's usually worth it.
Yeah, I agree. Like this is Eric was saying. Therefore, would you start with the fusion or the color page then? Again, like Casey was saying, it really depends on what you're doing. Like if you're just masking something out and that footage, like you've already done everything you're going to do in the edit page, you've got this clip and you jumped over the color page when I'm just going to mask out the background, and you're not changing the position or doing a lot of things later on. That works fine, but exactly what Casey was saying, like if you're going to start adding in glows and outlines and more things happening and color changes to that after you've masked it out, I absolutely agree with Casey that Fusion is your better bet. It just seems to be, not only is I think it's a smarter workflow, and if you can get over the fear of Fusion, I think more people say to me, if I show them something in Fusion that you could potentially do in another page, that the number one comment I get, well, you could do that in the edit page too. And I have to tell people, don't be afraid of Fusion, right? Like, yes, you can do things in different places, but don't not use Fusion just because you can do it in the edit page. I like to see, if you've got a really good grasp of the edit page, don't be afraid to jump over and start using the Fusion page more, because it's really going to start expanding your understanding of what you can do in the software itself.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
Let me show you something interesting here. So, okay, I'm going to switch over to the Fusion page, and let's say that I don't know that much about Fusion. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I want to make her look better with some brightness and contrast. And so I'll push up some contrast. And now I'm going to blur this, and I'm going to do a bunch of stuff and mess around with this, right? And this ends up being something that I don't like. And I'm completely lost in Fusion. Maybe I have, 15 other different nodes here, and I was trying to do this in 3D, and I'm just going crazy playing with this, right? Guess what? You can switch over to the edit page and go, oh my gosh, I just absolutely ruined this. I don't know how to fix any of that. You can right click here on this clip, and you can say reset Fusion composition. Look at that.
Nice.
That in itself gives you permission to play around. Okay. Same thing on the color page. Oh man, I just completely messed this up. What the heck is even going on? I don't even know what's happening, right? Right click, reset all grades and nodes. You cannot break stuff. You can't break it. You can always go back. All right.
That's a great perspective too, because it is like, I think that sometimes people get so confused, just with functionality. Sometimes like, what am I going to like? Sometimes thinking so linear. Like I've shown people like, hey, while you have a project open, one of the features I love and that I hate is you can actually go up. I think it's under the edit tab, or maybe the timeline. You can go and you can pull open the history of the session you've been working on. So if you made 12, 15, 100 steps and you screwed something up, you can go back through the history and go, I need to go back to the point I was at, at this step and restart there because I screwed up afterwards and it's got so much going on. I wish I could go back 18 steps. You can do that in the edit history. Yeah. But there are people out there that go, well, why don't you just hit Control Z? Well, you can, if you're 400 steps after you've figured out your mistake and you want to hit Control Z 400 times, it's not that you can't. I just don't know how effective that is. Sure. So there's always different ways to do things. And I think that being aware of the different things that Resolve can do is what sort of opens the door for more exploration and to be braver with the software and go, I'm going to try this, even if it fails. Another thing that I try to remind people is exactly what you said. Like, just open up a project and take a shot at something. Don't feel like it has to be that video that you've got scheduled to drop on YouTube in 4 days. And that's when you decide that you're going to master the Fusion page.
Yes.
Work your way up. Go like, listen, set your goals and go, I'm not there yet. So I'm going to start learning that. And hopefully 2 months from now, when I go to make this other video, I'll have the skill to go, I can jump right over to the Fusion page and I can really do something cool. Work your way up, learn the basics. Don't set unreasonable goals for yourself. Yeah.
That's the thing is find yourself, do whatever you can to put yourself in an environment where it's okay to fail. Yeah. That's like the biggest thing. That's how I learned so much stuff is I just open a project that doesn't matter and I try stuff and mess it up and get super confused and then restart and do it again. And then I get a little better and a little better and a little better. Right. Let me show you another hack real quick. So check this out. Here I have this edit and I really like it. Okay. But I go, gosh, what would it be like if I, did this crazy color grade on it, or I made this half as long? Here's what you do. Go to the media pool, find your edit, right click and duplicate that timeline and call it messing around. Okay. Double click to open that and ruin it. Absolutely destroy what you're doing. You can go as crazy as you want. It's totally fine, because you might like it, but if you get too deep and you don't like it, guess what? You can easily go back to this edit. And that gives you permission to fail. That's what this does. It gives you permission to experiment without worrying about losing your work. And that is, I think, the biggest barrier to creativity is, ooh, I don't know if I can experiment. I don't know if I can, like, should I try this? Oh, I don't want to mess it up, right? Yeah. This is digital stuff, guys. Worst case, the very worst case, you lose what you've done and you have to do it again, but you didn't actually lose any of your files, so you could do it again. That's the worst case.
It's funny. I do the same thing when I'm trying to figure out something. I don't do it that way. I actually go to the timeline settings, so that it shows the stacked timelines, and then I just click on it and duplicate the timeline. So I have two tabs at the same time, two timelines side by side, and I've got like, okay, I'm stopping here. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to open that other one with the tab right next to it, and I'm going to play around. And when I got it right, I'll go, okay, I got it. I got this. And then you can copy and paste it over. You can do whatever you want. There's a million things that you can do, or keep working on that timeline. I think there's so many opportunities. Like you said, don't be afraid to dive in and test the waters. And, you're not going to drown here. It's not okay. Like diving into the ocean and going, oh my gosh, now I'm stuck in the middle of the ocean. There's always that ability. Put yourself in a position where you go, I'm going to test my limits. And if it doesn't work out, I'll try to figure out what I did wrong, what I could do better, and try it again and see if I can get it to work and test different things out. Yeah. You don't need to know everything. Versions of
stuff. It's really fine. It's not going to make your project play back worse if you have 10 timelines instead of one. It's just not that big of a deal, right? So every time you like it, you sit back and you go, I like that. I wonder, duplicate the timeline or do something, back up the project, do something, save as, something like that, to where it's okay for you to absolutely ruin it, and you can always go back to that point where you liked it. Yeah, it's such a good way to do it.
I was saying earlier, like the edit history, that's the only thing I don't like about edit history. And I think it's still to this day, that's the same thing. The minute you close the project, you lose the edit history. So like I have people will come to me and go like, oh, how can I made a mistake and I can't, and I'll be like, you have an edit history tab. If you make a mistake, don't close Resolve. You'll have the whole edit history of what you did during that session, and you can step back in it. Just don't close it, because I wish it had an ability to save the edit history as well, so you could always open a project tomorrow and go, it's got all the steps in there of what I did to that point that I worked on yesterday. Maybe I'll have to yell at Terry and the guys and be like, hey.
Well, if you get in the habit of saving as or duplicating stuff, that's something that we do at my studio all the time. It's like there's always lots and lots of versions of things. And so if, sometimes you'll open up Resolve and the project will be corrupt. It literally won't open. And so now what do you do? Well, if it's the only project you have, well, I guess you're screwed.
Yeah, you lost everything. That is another thing too. There is a reason why every time I blink, DaVinci Resolve puts out a new update with bug fixes, and because there's stuff that goes wrong. They just put out another one. It was like 20.3, and minutes later, it was 2 days later, it was 20.3.1 with new bug fixes and new things. Sometimes it's features, sometimes it's bugs fixes, sometimes it's a bit of both, and they're always trying to improve the product. But they realize when they put this giant software in the hands of people and they keep modifying it, there's going to be new things that might break. They test it as much as they can, but when they put it in the hands of the community, they rely on the community feedback and go, yep, we got a lot of reports of this happening, and they immediately jump back in and try to fix the bugs, which is great. But you have to acknowledge, why isn't this working? Sometimes it is a glitch, it is a bug, and you have to kind of have to survive it.
That's right.
Just be aware of it.
That's right.
Casey, do me a favor. Let's give away one more studio license, because we've got so many people in here that are using the free version. Give me a word that the people can shout into the chat, and I will pick, which I'll just randomly pick a name. Someone typed it in.
The word is Christmas. It's like Christmas, but with a moose. Christmas.
Not Christmas. Christmas.
If you say Christmas, you cannot win.
Is the spelling count? Is
That's the rule. It better say
it
Christmas.
Is it CHRISTMOOSE? Christmas?
Yep. Christmas. All right.
Not studio. You got to type Christmas.
If you don't
Like
have
Christmas, like Christmas, but Christmas. Ooh, look at people trying it. They're doing a pretty good
there
job
you go.
here. They're going for it. Like I'm getting it. I wonder if spelling doesn't really count here because it's like, man, there's some like Christmas. That's a good.
If you
that's a
can
good
read
one.
it and it sounds sort of like Christmas, that'll be.
It doesn't have to be perfect. If I read it and I see that's Christmas, I'm just pulling some up. They're going for it.
Yeah,
Let me
they're
pick
crazy.
somebody. Let me pick somebody. Let me pick somebody. I'm going here. Let's see. I want to make sure. I'm trying to make sure it's not someone that I have already
already.
picked. So I'm going like, not making sure there's not a name I don't recognize because there's so many people going for it. So many people going for it. I'm going to say, let's see. I like a good facial hair. I got to say, I like a good facial hair. So Mr. Real Temptations. I got it.
Temptations.
Mr. Real
Amazing.
Temptations. Even his name is a cool play on a word.
Yeah.
So Mr. Real Temptations. Reach out to Megan, MEGAN at danielbatal.com. That's Megan in the chat. And she'll put that in the chat here. I'll make sure I link it in the description or something afterwards if you don't find it. But reach out and she will talk to you and she will confirm that you are the channel owner, that this is your channel. And we'll get a studio license sent out to you courtesy of our good friends at Black Magic Design, who are they've been absolutely wonderful sponsors on the channel. So congratulations to everybody who won something today. Congratulations to anybody who doesn't need to win anything because they already got the studio version.
Yeah,
That's one of the best
you're already
parts.
rocking
I love
it. That's cool.
I love Christmas. Look at some of these Christmas. If we weren't judging by the amount of O's, that one would have won.
Yeah.
Listen, Casey, thank you so much for coming here, especially this time of year when everyone's schedule is busy. Thank you for all the valuable information that you provide on YouTube every day with all of your videos. I have Casey's channel linked in the description of this, and I will put it into the pinned comment afterwards. If you are not following Casey's content right now, make sure you go over there, subscribe to his channel, and check out his videos because he really does take some very complex ideas and concepts and really break them down in a way that makes it easier for knuckleheads like me to understand. And I promise you, following his content is going to get you a lot further along, especially when it comes to the Fusion page. So
yeah, thanks, man.
make sure you do that. Casey, thank you again. I hope you have a fantastic holiday season up there in Canada.
You too.
And out there in the Pacific Northwest.
That's right.
And everybody in the chat, I
In the
hope you
Great
guys...
White North.
The Great White North. Everybody in the chat, whatever holiday you might be celebrating, even if you celebrate none, I hope you guys have an excellent rest of the season here, the rest of December, and a happy new year when that comes around. And we'll definitely do more of these kinds of things coming up in the future. God bless all of you guys, and we will talk to all of you guys soon.